No public forums, petitions or deputations. So we'll move to item 5, which is the confirmation of minutes for the ordinary meeting of council for the 15th of December.
I'll move.
Moved by Lloyd, seconded by Jeremy. No alterations or corrections. Linda, would you?
Question if I
Yep.
can. I'm just wondering what follow-up there may or may not have been around the White Pines Trust presentation. Have we see anything happening with that or not?
I have raised with Jan, and we do need to, and that follow-up needs to be done, and the holidays have put us behind. But that will be done, and that may well actually mean a workshop conversation, because there was a number of issues in that proposal, but that is one of those loose ends we need to get tidied up. So thank you for that.
Thanks.
We've moved and seconded. If there's no further questions or clarification, I will put the motion. All in favour will say aye. Aye. Against, no. Carried. Move to the extraordinary meeting of the 22nd of November. It's moved by Jeremy, seconded by Lyndall. Any questions or discussion? If not, I will put the motion. All in favour will say aye. Aye. Against, no. Carried. Move to item 6, notification of extraordinary urgent business, supplement reports or other. Not aware of any. Move to questions. Any questions for the meeting this morning? George, do you have a question or?
No, I think we covered in corporate with Jeremy.
Okay, we will move to item 8, which is chairman's and councillors' reports. So there is a list of some of the activities, being a reasonably quiet time since their last meeting. There hasn't really been a lot of meetings. Does any, so I've got nothing further. Alan?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So just a clarification point, on the 30th of January, you talked about the environmental challenges facing Lorahuku with the, was that the Rural Support Trust, or what is the acronym that supports? What's that?
I've got
that happened?
Fiona, or was it Jan?
The meeting was deferred at the trust request, so it was prepared on the basis, that document was prepared on the basis that meeting was going ahead, so the day after the agenda was sent out.
Right. So was it the Southland Rural Support Trust?
That's who it is.
So you just flipped the letters around, because it's SRTS rather than ST.
All right. Can be clarified.
That's fine.
Lloyd?
I've got a small report.
Yep.
Yes. I've done quite a lot of prowling around the province over the summer, particularly in Western Southland, where I'm researching the book and up the Milford Road, which is another potential book. Just a few things I noted. The drought effect is beginning to sort of bite in a few areas. The Whitestone pretty low yesterday. Dynamo is pretty prevalent in all our waterways. The worst one was the stream that flows through the new public camping ground up the Eagleton Valley at Cascade Creek, which is particularly bad. There's been a lot of planting around, which is good, but those things haven't been watered, so there's a lot of stuff that's been planted and it's dying. I'm just wondering if people are getting the right advice about a follow-up. If you're planting in a dry area, you've got to think about watering for 1 or 2 years after that, otherwise it's wasted. I contemplated wading the wire out in our weir. It was 17 cumex on the website. I wasn't quite brave enough, but it's only sitting it's just above the minimum level, so there's just sort of a bare trickle there. It's good to see tourism around. There's lots of people on the Te Araroa Trail using the Maui track and the new Totara Reserve, which got involved in Ototara, which is a really good development project. So lots of good stuff happening. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Lloyd, and yes, the province is getting dry in places, and it's good to hear that the cycle trail walking track is getting people off that dangerous road, particularly for those walkers. I know there's an official opening hopefully coming up if the COVID lifts us, but that's a great step forward, not only for tourism but for safety. Is there any other verbal reports this morning? I'm conscious we haven't had much since the last December meeting. If not, we will move to item 1, the Chief Executive's report. Rob, would you like to talk to your report?
Thanks, Chair. Look, I'll take the report as read. Just a couple of quick comments. It's been a time when staff have been on leave, but there's still a lot of work underway. I guess just touch on a couple of those areas. Climate resilience work is a real focus for us. We're keen to get work done this construction period. I know we've got some work that's just about completed in Boundary Creek in Matara, and that's pretty timely, noting we're almost 2 years since we had the biggest flood we've ever recorded in Matara. So I'm really pleased that work's underway, and I gather there's and also there's a lot of design work getting ready for further improvements up joining to Gore and down further down the catchment at Wyndham, and some of that work may all start this construction season. And a lot of work going on getting ready for the Stead Street pump station that we'll be talking about shortly. The regulatory work continues, just pretty big consenting workload. And I know the regulatory committee will be more fully briefed on that in the next wee while, and also compliance teams is also busy. The rest of the organisation's also got a lot of work going on with Omicron, getting ready for that. We've got an INT team that it's been set up that we've talked to you about before. That team's providing exec with advice, and we'll be making decisions, ongoing decisions. Just noting that this is not lockdown, as we've talked about. This is we've got to continue our business and shops open. We've got to do it in a way which we keep our people safe and our community safe as well. So we're looking to navigate our way through that. So a time of uncertainty, but also a time where there's a lot of work to do. Noting the council workload for this year, for the remainder of the term, is significant. So look, happy to take any questions, Chair.
Well, Eric, then Lloyd.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Well, on page 23, there's reference to Untitled and Rapesy Sound and a survey being completed. Are we going to see the result of the survey? My concern is, well, it's good that the activity is taking place. I've got no idea whether we're making any progress. When I first joined the council, we were talking about an incursion. We're now talking about a biomass. And I understand the term biomass and marine technology. What's happening?
Yeah, so as you know, we've got a Jobs for Nature project. It's some funding where we're looking to do some work in Fiordland. We're doing work in Fiordland. It is around containment, and I see Ellie Means at the back, so she can tidy up after my initial foray into this answer. So look, with Untitled, this is going to be a challenge. It's virtually impossible to eradicate. We've got a single cell organism, and it's got a hold there, but this is around containing and hoping that we don't try to contain it in the short and medium term so it doesn't spread, and we may well have with a bit of luck and a tailwind, there may be some new tools developed. But the key thing is at this stage is containment, and we're also noting we've got a pathway plan to stop the spread that's operating as well. So, but no, this is it's got a more than a toe hold. It's got a, what's the word for a foothold or whatever. If going right back, we thought we had an answer. We had, if you remember, we had Kinner that was doing quite a good job, but actually it didn't quite do the job. So it's the way. And Chair, could I ask Ellie Mead, who's our Biosecurity Biodiversity Operation Manager, if there's anything she'd like to add to that?
Brilliant, Mr. Chair. I guess the only thing to update on that is that yes, we can, once we've got all survey results in and we've finished this season's work, we can do a full report to council if council wish. And an update from the divers. So the Jobs for Nature project, we've got 11 divers fully qualified in Fiordland. They're working 60-hour, 70-hour weeks at the moment in Fiordland. And since the 1st of January, they've moved over 10-tonne wet weight of Undaria already. So having that number of people working in permanently is going to have a massive difference. So hopefully by the end of this season, we'll be able to show you some really good results about what happens when we have like the resources to do the job. But yeah, I can do a full report at some time.
And just touching on, following on from Ali, this work is only possible through Jobs for Nature funding. We haven't got the resources or the funding to do this work.
Lloyd.
Mr. Chairman, I've got three things, if I may. Under policy and planning, I see there's the council put their evidence in. I was wondering whether whether there's an opportunity to update the committee on what some of those discussions were before we go back to the court for our own evidence on the 11th of February.
Yeah, so we'll bring that. I'll ask Wilma to bring that through and give you an update.
That would be after our last discussion in that committee. It would be quite good to see where they are actually landed. The second thing is the insurance on page 21. I see that we haven't got any further ahead, and I'm just wondering, do we pursue that, or do we accept their ruling?
So we're discussing that with Aon and our council lawyers, and we'll be bringing back some advice on that. So Raymond's all over that. So we'll come back to you with the advice.
And so the follow-on to that is that because of that decisional process, should we be looking at some of our insurance policies or the way we do business going forward so we don't have this in the future? Can we get some clarification of the ease of work?
So that feeds into a broader conversation and a decision around insurance across the business. Yeah. And absolutely given. Yeah, it's a given.
And the last thing, Mr. Chairman, I'm aware that it's not reported here, but there was an accident in Te Anau a couple of weeks ago. A boat ran over a person in the water who could have been life-threatening. I think they've only it was a 20% chance whether that person got to the hospital or not. There was quite an issue there at Fiordland. I don't know whether it triggers any of our policies, but I think it's been I know the family personally. It's been pretty gutting for the family. But that's one of those things we don't want to happen.
So that's our harbour master was in the area, and the police manage that process, and we're in conversations around what the learnings out of this.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, just to clarify that further, unfortunately our harbour master Mr. Cleave is in Fiordland today doing some other work, but as you may have seen in some of the media, there were two summer students engaged doing some work in the area around boater education. Now, obviously a very unfortunate incident, and it's probably a pretty tragic period generally for water safety across the last month or two in New Zealand, but there was a lot of proactive work being done by Mr. Cleaver and his team to try and raise both the awareness and education levels.
Alan.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. So my question's on page 22, gravel management. So I read there that we're doing some more, well, probably using some of the information from LIDAR to understand, I guess, gravel levels in the Waikaia and the Upper Mataura. I'm just looking timeframes because there's been issues or concerns over gravel build-up in those rivers for some time, and I think some of the farmers are looking for some activity. And I guess we see here more survey work, which is not always a bad thing to understand things better. But I wonder whether we can get a little bit more update on the timeframes for this work and at what stage could there be actual gravel moving from some of those rivers, some of those build-ups, and are there enough contractors in that area who will be interested in taking up that gravel if we find that there's excess?
So a couple of questions there through to you. A couple of questions. I guess the first bit around the technology. So between Bruce and Roman, can you answer the one about timeframes?
Chair, so that we're just in the process of engaging for at the moment, and we're looking to a mid-year time frame for data development. So this capture that we're expecting to start in the next few weeks, and then start on process after that, processing and delivery.
And then out of
that, through you, Mr. Chairman, obviously the other component of that relates to the consenting aspects of gravel extraction. And there are a number of stakeholders involved in that space. Obviously, our 4 major rivers are also under the Untitled Claim Settlement Act, so Tangawhia are pretty much individually our stakeholders of that process, as are a number of others. So depending on what it is and where it is, there can be some consenting processes most often required, and we have to work through those, and that can take some time dependent on the position of affected parties and the response times of those as well.
And the first thing, I guess, is to understand what we've got, what we're dealing with before we can make any decision around what's the best way to manage this going forward. So yeah, the first things first, let's get that information. This is new technology, and so it's enabling us to do things in quite a timely way and get good information.
So it could easily be the back end of this year before we have any possibility of any gravel movements or new gravel movements in those rivers.
When you say gravel movements, you mean?
Well, if there is extractions of gravel that have...
Raymond, would you like to add to that? So you're looking at...
Chair, if I could, so then I appreciate this, particularly with the legal gravel. There are some issues with some of the large consent applications from my perspective, in moving the process team. The small applications, particularly farm-based, for a reasonably short period of time, for a reasonably short volume, trying to keep those moving. It's the bigger applications that I guess are caught up in us needing good data to make good decisions. So, you're right, there is a bit of a short-term delay there, but certainly later to move again once we have a chance to digest it.
Just on that, I'm assuming that LiDAR and some of the new technology is going to be more accurate and actually probably quicker, because we've always had to do the surveys, there used to be transects, etc., to prove that stuff had to come out.
Yeah, and Chair, and certainly markedly cheaper than conventional physical survey cross sections. The work that's being done is fully comprehensive, so it is from the mouth all the way out to Garston and beyond, and LiDAR. Really detailed, three-dimensional picture of those river corridors. Really powerful information, and information that can be used outside of catching populations and other parts of the organisation. So a big particularly is the CEC's really cutting edge technology.
Thanks for that. I've got Peter, followed by Robert, Lyndall, Lloyd Eastler, then Eric. So we'll line up. Peter, you're next.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Alan asked one of the questions. I just wanted to talk about gravel management too. Just some encouragement to see that it seems as though we're moving towards a direction of uniformity and some sort of overarching strategy, it says here, around river management to form a wider management strategy for both the rivers. I've seen the LiDAR technology through a Lynn's presentation, and it's quite groundbreaking stuff. It would be quite good at some stage to get catchment team and LandPro to come in and give us a visual demonstration. It seems as though we'll get a really good understanding where the historical floodplains are, and it's quite a good technology. So just an encouragement that I think we're moving in the right direction there.
We'll note that down and make sure we schedule a workshop around technology and what it's delivering.
Robert.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. A couple of questions, Rob, on biosecurity. The first is about just asking about giant buttercup situation, because that's been an issue for a number of years, thinking back to when it was first reported here. And I know a lot of that was up in Porokino, and I just wonder where we're at now. Has it increased or decreased, or what's the situation?
Can we ask Melanie to comment on that?
Apologies, I don't have the details on that species in my head. I'll have to go back to my team and find out exactly where we're at with that one. It's not, we do get a few phone calls and we do get a few issues, but it's not off the fine, so I will.
All right, thanks. And the second one, if I may, I've noticed a number of ES biosecurity staff hanging around my garden out in Riverton. I wonder if that's because of reported sightings of old man's beard. Not required to answer.
Oh, very good.
You can see it on Google Maps, councillor Guyton.
No complaints here.
It's hard to follow that. Thanks, Chair. My question was about the insurance and it's been asked, so thanks.
Thanks. Lord Isler.
Yeah, mine was also about the gravel management. I was just intrigued with the new technology and also interested in where we go from here. But my concern is the ecology of the river. I mean, we talk about the gravel, but it's the fish in it's a nesting area for the black-billed gulls and black-fronted terns. I'm just concerned that we're maintaining a suitable sort of profile, which is going to not disrupt the breeding. So if it's channelized too deeply, you're losing those little islands and things. And if we get the spread of broom and other plants across there, that disrupts that as well. I'm just wondering if that's all being taken into account when we're talking about gravel management.
I can assure you, through the Chair, that through the consenting process, and Bruce touched on this earlier on, these various interests are looked at, and absolutely any decision making, they are absolutely looked at. Bruce, anything you'd like to add to that?
Councillor Isler raises a valid concern that a number of stakeholders also raised about the balancing the aspirations of people to extract gravel with the potential ecological impacts of it, and we quite often get those sort of habitat issues raised through the process by the stakeholders, and they are factored into the decision-making process.
On an encouraging note, DOC have taken a much more proactive stance in recent times and encouraging leaving islands so predators can't get out there, and leaving the bare gravel at a height that isn't going to be flooded. So there seems to have been a slight change which will actually help these habitats. And we'll go from there. So it's Lloyd. Eric.
Yeah, it's not mentioned there, but under pest plants, I'm just wondering, have we put velvet leaf to bed as a potential contaminant myself or my property? I'm still being surveyed, and I'm just wondering where the province is with that. Do you have any information on that?
So I understand it's an MPI led program. We haven't done our pest plan, and so there's still some work going on to just. You remember 5 or 6 years ago we had a significant program of work, and there's still a bit of follow on from that. But Ali might wish to add to those comments, Chair.
Thank you.
So it's been managed by MPI. None has been found in Southland for the last few years, so it's looking really good that big operation we did manage to get rid of it. But MPI is going to keep monitoring the situation for another couple of years. And if your property has been affected, MPI should be talking to you quite regularly about that velvet leaf management thing. So all we're doing is supporting MPI with contact at the moment, but signs are good that big operation dealt with it.
Thank you.
Neville.
It's all been dealt with. You must get on the gravel extraction hearing, and I can recall the nesting areas for black-billed gulls and the possible changes in stream flows, diversion and stuff like that have all been part of the consultation and decision process.
Not really a question, but it's probably just an advertisement. The Waituna Field Day on the 1st, it's been significant progress out there, and so if there's any others that want to go to that, I think it's something we're involved with. But we've made a bit of progress with land and the ability for iwi to actually return the area to more cultural base habitat. So it's actually quite a milestone, and a number of us I know are going, but it is probably quite good for one or two to go out there and just have a look. So after my advertisement, if there's no more questions, we'll move on to the next item.
I'll move this.
Right. Moved by Lloyd, seconded by Alan. All in favour say aye. Aye. So item 2 is the appointment of a new electoral officer.
Once we take this item as read, but just note that the SDC, who have been our electoral providers for the last 2 or 3 election cycles, have undertaken a review of their processes and appointed a new company to run the election process for them, and in doing so ensured that Environment Southland were covered by that same contract. So as a result, we're now required to appoint a new electoral officer for the forthcoming elections, and that's what this item is about.
No, thanks for that, Jan. I see the same officer is doing all of Southland, which seems to be a practical way of doing things. Any comments or questions? If not, would somebody like to move? Moved by David, seconded by Eric. All in favour say aye. Aye. Right, we'll move to item 3, which is the councillors' meeting schedule.
And you'll notice that today's request also includes 2 leave of absence requests for Councillor Maker. And in addition, we just had one meeting added to the list that I'm aware of, and that was environmental challenges for presentation for the new University Forum. It's been scheduled for the 23rd of February at 6:30 at night.
Any additions, deletions, or absences?
You know, I'm just wondering, there is, I can't remember the exact date, it's mid-February, there's a meeting for, the government's actually got a meeting in Winton for the emissions pricing. I didn't know whether, did we want to have, or like we might go, or I might go just out of interest, but do we want to have councillors there?
Well, you know, it's topical and we've got to deal with it. I think, yes, we probably do.
I think there's 2 meetings, one's in Gore, so 2 days later, and one's in Winton, so it might pay just to mention them. 13, 16 by memory, but don't quote me on those dates.
I'm going to be off away from the 8th to the 28th to the 8th of February. So, I mean, there's no meetings between that period, and if there's anything that comes up, I'm certainly available. But as far as absence from my house, that's required to be declared.
Very good. Any further additions?
I'll move those recommendations, Chairman, that's read.
Moved by Neville. Seconded for that. Alan. All in favour say aye. Aye. The next item is item 4, which is reporting of expenditure above delegated authority.
It's just continuing on the expenditure for work on the National Wildlife Conifer Program. It exceeds delegated authority of the Chief Executive and General Manager, amounts to $385,769.83, and program work. Number of these.
That's moved by Neville, seconded by Jeremy. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against no carried. Okay. There is no extraordinary urgent business that I'm aware of. So I think that actually ends the public session for today. So we'll need to move into public excluded. Would you like to give the reasons for going into public excluded?
Reasons for going into public excluded is to enable any local authority holding information to carry out without prejudice or disadvantage commercial activities, to prevent the disclosure or use of official information for improper gain or advantage, to prevent the disclosure or use of official information for improper gain or advantage, to protect information which is subject to obligation of confidence with making available of the information will be likely to prejudice the supply of similar information or information from the same source, where it is the public interest that such information should continue to be supplied or be likely otherwise to damage the public interest.
Thanks. Would somebody like to move into public excluded? Lloyd, seconded by Alan. All in favour will say aye.
Aye.
Can we stop the live stream there now? Thank you.
Michael, could I,